My friend, it sounds like you and I are talking about two different laws. The text you're referring to in Galatians is this one here on my side. Paul says that the law was added because of sin. Now, which law is he talking about? He is speaking of the ceremonial law. Now, the vast majority of Christianity doesn't put any difference between the ceremonial law and the Ten Commandments. However, the Bible does. Let's look at a few examples from Galatians to see which law Paul was talking about. Here Paul's talking about circumcision. Was circumcision part of the new covenant or the old? Here it is again. Here, Paul calls Peter to the carpet in Galatians 2:14. He says, Peter, if you're not living like a Jew anymore, why are you telling all the Gentiles that they have to? And what was he referring to? The ceremonial law. Here in Galatians 4:10, the verse that I highlighted, we see kind of the kicker for what I'm saying here. See, what was going on was that the Galatians had accepted the gospel by grace that Paul had preached to them. And you had these Judaizers come in, because they always followed Paul around because they hated Paul. They hated the gospel. So you had these Judaizers come in, and they were convincing the Galatian believers that you had to keep the law of Moses to be saved. And it's one of the reasons that Paul spoke so strongly in Galatians, the entire book of Galatians, that we don't have to keep the law of Moses anymore, as well as Colossians 2 and Ephesians 2. And here in this whole section of Galatians 5, Paul's talking about circumcision versus uncircumcision. He says it does not matter whether you're circumcised or not anymore. In fact, Paul's language is so strong that in Galatians 5 verse 12, this is the Good News Bible version, he says this. He says, I wish the people who were saying circumcision was such a big deal would go ahead and just castrate themselves. Paul didn't mince words, I love it. Now you see here in Acts 15, we see the same thing. Now this was a different situation, but it was the same concept. It caused so much of a controversy, in fact, that they had to call a general council of the believers. And the decision was, hey guys, we don't have to keep the feasts anymore. Now pay special attention to this graphic. Every adjective that describes God and His Word describes His 10 Commandments. And notice particularly here at the end, God is eternal, His 10 Commandments are eternal. Now as for God's 10 Commandments, here are some verses that show their eternality. Thy testimonies are everlasting. That's another word for the 10 Commandments. Here in Psalm 111, your commandments stand fast forever and ever. Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. And according to John 8:58 and Exodus 3, He is the one who gave the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. If you claim to belong to Jesus, you need to walk as He walked. If you don't, you're a liar. How did Jesus walk, though? Jesus says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, even as I kept my Father's commandments and abide in His love. You are my friends if you keep what I command you. And of course, we can't forget Revelation 22:14. Check it out.